Welcome to my 8-Bits. This is my review of Samurai Warriors Chronicles for the Nintendo 3DS. A quick disclaimer. This is my first Warriors game of any kind, Dynasty, Samurai, whatever, so please keep that in mind during the review. Thank you. Samurai Warriors Chronicles tells us the story of the Warring States period of Japanese history, leading to the eventual unification of the country. You take up the role of a mercenary, bouncing between warlords and leaders as you fight in the most important battles of the era. The story gets pretty complicated as it introduces many different characters, and because of your mercenary status, you can go from fighting for one army to fighting against that same army within a mission or two. The game uses a chapter structure to separate the story into bite-sized chunks, and while it does this pretty well, you'll still confuse faces and names every now and again. The game also pushes you to become friends with some characters, but you'll hardly feel any connection, even when you max out one of these friendships. For the most part, the story is well told, but it's nothing you'll really get sucked into. The game uses cutscenes to punctuate important events, but for the most part, the game is told through written character dialogue before and after battles. Samurai Warriors Chronicles is a massive hack-and-slash-a-palooza. Each and every one of these battles takes place on huge open maps and contains thousands of combatants. Luckily, most of them are just fodder for your blade. You can rid the map of dozens of guys with a few swipes of your sword, and it makes you feel like a total badass. However, there are also ranked officers that are a bit tougher to take down, so it's not entirely easy. In fact, this is not an easy game at all. You will constantly be replaying battles as you try and overcome what will seem like impossible odds. The difficulty curve is erratic, though you will feel an increase as the game gets further along. Just keep in mind you probably won't finish every battle your first time through. Even though 99% of the battles comes down to systematically exterminating enemy forces and killing one main general, it's getting your characters to that point of doing so where the challenge comes from. Every battle has plenty of different objectives and missions to fulfill if you want the battle to turn cleanly in your favor. These missions involve killing certain officers, escorting allies to strategic locations, taking down enemy structures, and many more. Sure, all of them involve killing hundreds of enemy soldiers, but the reason for doing so, and the way in which you'll be doing so, is varied. Besides keeping track of constantly changing missions, there's also a morale bar that gives insight on exactly how strong enemy combatants will be. Sometimes you'll be able to take down entire squads in seconds, and other times, a few unranked enemies can give you some trouble. With all of these things to keep track of, it's a good thing you're not alone. Along with your main player character, you can control up to 3 other allied officers at a time on the battlefield. This makes it easier to take on multiple missions at once, and some missions will award bonuses if completed with a certain officer. As much as this game can be said to be mindless button mashing, it's at least an equal part strategy. All of the combat happens on the top screen, while your map, objectives, and switching between officers is controlled via the touchscreen. Combat uses almost all of the buttons on the 3DS. Use the circle pad to move, and the face buttons to pull off strings of weak, strong, and physical attacks. The left shoulder button centers the camera, and the right one activates each fighter's special ability. While you'll fight, you'll charge up your spirit energy and your Muso bar. One fully charged Muso bar allows you to go into a powerful Muso state that slows down time and makes all of your attacks stronger for a brief period. Your spirit energy allows you to pull off special techniques unique to each fighter, such as healing, raising attack power, or making you temporarily invincible. The spirit techniques can be shared between officers, so if one officer is in a pinch, you can use another spirit to help out, even if the two are on separate sides of the map. When your spirit is fully charged and you have a Muso bar to spare, you can unleash your warrior's strongest attack at the cost of both energies. Fighting is fast-paced and frantic, and while it seems like it could get repetitive, and in some points it does, the varied mission-based structure of the game and the sheer number of enemies on screen at once keeps you on your toes, and constantly changing your game. Also, because you'll be switching between 4 characters, each with their own weapons, special attacks, and overall playstyle, you'll find plenty of variety even when button mashing. The game also features some light RPG elements which you'll have to take advantage of to deal with tougher challenges. As you kill enemies, you gain experience, which levels up your character, and the more action one officer is seen, the more experience they'll get at the end of a battle. You won't really have to grind, as you'll already be replaying missions many times over just trying to beat them. However, the real customization comes from equipment and weapon upgrades. You can equip certain items to your character to increase their stats, and doing so is necessary in order to power them up. Some items also grant special abilities, such as increased gain from healing items, or not losing as much spirit energy when you do use it. You can find new weapons for each of your characters after a battle, and combine them to raise their stats. You want to combine like weapons. For example, if 2 weapons add to your attack strength, combine them for a bigger attack bonus. You can also combine weapons with equipment in order to give the weapon more varied bonuses, like adding a defense stat to it. Combining weapons and items in order to get a high-level balanced weapon and character becomes a game unto itself. Samurai Warriors Chronicles looks amazing with pretty high-res characters and wide-open fields of battle. However, barring unique characters and stage elements, there's a lot of repeat when it comes to enemies and maps. You won't really mind it much when you're just blowing through armies of fodder, but you'll definitely notice it when you're battling two or more of the same stronger guy over and over again. Also, because of the high enemy count, there's poppin' and flashing characters. This doesn't happen very often, and it's amazing where the game's limits are, but when it does happen, it's very bothersome. Surprisingly, there isn't a lot of slowdown. The game runs at a pretty constant speed regardless of the number of enemies or effects on the screen. The 3D is beautiful as well, and adds a real depth of field during battle, and it even makes the transition effects on the top screen that much more interesting. Music is rousing and fits the moment, but like almost everything else in the game, is repeated multiple times. If you don't mind looking at the same thing over and over again, you'll find a very pretty game for a handheld. Overall, Samurai Warriors Chronicles is a confusing case. It's a game that feels rushed, repetitive, and frustrating, yet I still had tons of fun playing, and occasionally fighting with it. For the most part, it's technically sound, so I'd say my recommendation is entirely based upon whether you think you'd like this style of game or not. Samurai Warriors Chronicles gets a 7 out of 10.